Good morning, everybody. So today, Sue and myself are going to be sharing. So we're doing this series at the moment, the essential elements of well-being. Today's topic is about self-awareness. So we thought we'd share with you some tips and some ways to become more self-aware, because we both believe that it's kind of the foundation of how we see ourselves and how we see the world. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, pretty foundational. And I think possibly one of the most important things for me is just how often we can have a negative view of ourselves and how important it is to be aware of that. So
absolutely.
What are your initial thoughts?
So the first thing, so the coaching that I do is very much around mindset. And so this very much ties into that as the self-awareness. And the first point is actually knowing the truth, because very often when we have a thought about something and we then sort of judge it, it's not actually the truth. It's maybe a fear, maybe a self-doubt, maybe, I don't know if you find that, but certain days I'm great to manage certain things and other days not so much. And it's not really about the event, but it's how I perceive the truth in that moment, how I feel about myself.
Absolutely. I can relate to the variability of that. Some days are certainly better than others. And I think that's why it's possibly so important to just develop that awareness of of thinking about your thinking. What is actually going on? I'm just noticing, an ability to really tap into that sounds very negative as I play it back to myself. What's going on with that? Do I believe that? So maybe also beyond just noticing, maybe also questioning, is that true? Or when is it not true? Or how did I make that up? Because most of it isn't true. It isn't the truth, as you said.
When it could be something like somebody not getting back to you, somebody not responding to an email, all of those things can have a trigger depending on where you're at. And often you don't know the actual what's going on for that person.
That's a brilliant one. I think they call it, sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, go.
So I think someone called it the self-attribution bias. When things go wrong, we think it's all about us. So someone doesn't return a call or the email's a bit short. We always assume it's about ourselves. And in fact, most often it's not. It's something that's going on with, for them. And so we got to be aware of that one.
I've basically never had a situation where I've thought that it was something that I've done or said, and it's never been, it's always been something else. So that just sounds so egotistical, I suppose, in a way, to always make it about yourself.
Well, I mean, it is. We are very self-oriented. I mean, we have to protect ourselves. So I think it serves us. Yes. And then at some point it stops serving us when we overthink, right?
Absolutely. The next one, and I don't know how comfortable you are about this, but I know that I'm very comfortable with this one, if it's done in a constructive way. So this is about asking for feedback. So if somebody's going to give me feedback constructively, I'm all open for that. But it depends on the way that it's delivered, because I think feedback is important, but it is the way that it's delivered. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a very challenging area. And I think some people are better at receiving feedback than others and better at delivering feedback than others. I think most of the time, my preference is actually for self-assessment. Really having a good think yourself about what could be better. But certainly being aware of and listening to cues from others. If you can get feedback in a very safe way, it can be a lovely opportunity for growth, but that safety really has to be ensured, both for the receiver and for the giver. We're quite wired to take it badly. So it needs to be a very, very safe space.
I think that's where the hamburger comes in, right? So it does help to go, this is what I'm really enjoying, this is what I'm really loving, this is what I really appreciate. And would you be open to blah, 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 as opposed to why are you always late, or something like that, because that's not really great feedback, it's not. Yeah, because that kind of ties into one of the next ones, which is around why, being a very, why it's just not nice. What works better than why? Because kind of however you put why, you feel less than, you feel very judged. Why did you do that? Why are you doing this? Why are you not doing that? It just, yeah, I think why can be a tricky one, maybe not a great one to use.
Yeah, we certainly know as coaches that it can be interpreted that, or even though it should, and it's in and of itself be a useful question to go back and understand the why. It is often, it has a sort of an attack phrasing to it somehow. So yeah, some of the other questions are, I think, better.
Well, especially if you want to be self-aware, I think the why brings all this judgment, and it kind of doesn't help with self-awareness. It goes straight into a judgment and feeling less than,
That's harsh.
The next one is surrounding yourself with the right people. I think, again, that kind of ties into the way we get feedback. Because if you are surrounded by people who want to support you and work with you, there's going to be a very different way of helping you become more self-aware in your self-growth and your personal growth than if you're surrounded by people who, I don't know, just maybe belittle you or put you down. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation. It could be a teacher, it could be a parent, it's not conscious. I don't believe anybody ever wakes up in the morning and thinks, how can I make someone feel less than? But it's just some people, I don't know, the wording. Actually, self-awareness is not there around the wording that they use. And that's why it's important to surround yourself with the right people. I don't know if you've ever had that, people that you've been surrounded by.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had both. I've worked in teams and with teams where, there's almost a competing kind of conflict, that undertone, where everybody's operating as an individual. And then I've worked with teams, and this is something I always like to encourage with teamwork, is how to be responsible for one another's development. So how do you get the team to make sure that there are opportunities for you in the way that you would like them? So does everybody know everybody's development areas and goals? And then how do you support that? I mean, isn't that incredibly powerful? If you've got somebody else looking out for opportunities for you to grow in the way that you want to, it can be super, super powerful. That I love it.
Yeah, especially if you are working. So if we're all working in our place of strength, then that would be incredibly helpful as well, to work in that strength. Because for me, again, I suppose with the feedback, surrounding yourself with the right people, all of that ties into that trait of humility. So if I get an email from somebody, which can be no, boom, 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 or as per my last email, boom, 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 or regarding, boom, there's certain words that, I don't know, whether it's a WhatsApp or an email you get, and you go, oh, wow, okay. Let me be humble, and let me sort of be open to this. And let me have a growth mindset. Let me see the bigger picture here. But I don't know about you, but depending on how self-aware I am that day will depend on how it immediately kind of kicks me in the stomach a bit. I will pause before I respond, but the blow does depend on how self-aware I am that day. I don't know how you are with that.
But I think your pause there is the critical thing, right? Because that brings the awareness. In the pause, you're able to say, okay, what's going on here? Why am I reacting? A, I'm reacting. There's a bit of a trigger. And then B, how do I want to be? So if you have to assume positive intent, you just assume that they meant something positive. They didn't mean something negative. Just assume that.
Yes.
If you can do that in that little pause space, then everything changes, because there's a reason that isn't about you, and you don't have to become defensive. So there doesn't need to be a whole circle of energy around something that was phrased in a way that, was interpreted not in the way that you meant it, maybe, so I think that pause is the space actually for being aware, for building that awareness of, okay, what's going on for me? What might be going on there? How can I be positive? What's the best way I can show up here?
And often our triggers are stuff that we are either dealing with or processing. So our triggers are our best teachers in a way, because there's a reason why those things trigger us. So it's a good time to look inwards and go, okay, what's going on for us? So yeah. So, for people who are watching, who are possibly getting triggered, feel frustrated, not feeling too sure about where to from here, coaching can really help you to, first of all, stand back, become self-aware. And then in order to become self-aware, you have to do certain practices to increase that awareness, and then to change those with various behavior changes. So that's where coaching can help. So if you feel that you would like to make some changes for the new year, we would love to talk to you.
I echo that. Yeah, there are lots of meditative practices can be very helpful. Many other things, just to get you into that sort of meta place of thinking about your thinking, and your own biases, your own personality, your own strengths, and how they play out. So yeah, good one. Thanks, Bridget.
Yeah, thanks so much. Bye.